Welcome to Permission to Be Human, the podcast. I'm your host, Mel Finlater, mother, coach, and curator of Permission to Be Human, the company and community. If you're a mom, know a mom, or want to be a mom, and you crave getting out in the world to make a difference, then you're in the right place. This is a space for moms like you to connect with yourself, your purpose, and your big, audacious dreams. Because when you feel your best, you can better you, your family, and the wider world. Let's do this. Today we get to talk about Joy. Not my dog, she's also called Joy, but instead we're talking to Heidi Esther, who is a joyologist. What an amazing title, right? Meet Heidi Esther, joyologist. If Mr. Rogers and Captain Marvel had a baby, it would be Heidi Esther. She's a cookie-baking, strategic powerhouse, momma, and bad poet. Along with 2 decades experience as a professional relationship builder and 1 decade learning from life's trenches, she is an author, speaker, and certified emotional intelligent life coach. She's on a mission to liberate busy, generous working women from the laundry lists of life so they may embrace their peculiar genius and well-deserved joy. It is really actually a joy to talk to Heidi, and I am so excited that you get to listen into this conversation to find her story and also dig into what is joy? Why are we afraid of it? And what is it about our worthiness that we are avoiding or afraid of? So stick around. We go deep, we go light. It's good fun.
Hi, Heidi.
Hey, how's it going?
Welcome. I'm excited that we finally got this in the books and we get to chat and find out all about you and your journey and the conversation of worthiness and where it leads us. But welcome to
Yeah.
the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It is a delight and an honor.
Oh, well, I'm so excited that we are here finally together here. So tell us about just who's Heidi.
Wow, Heidi is a poet, I should say a bad poet, a big feeler, a Midwestern mama who's been there. I am a woman on a transformational journey, both personal and professional. And I am at a place right now where I have the honor and privilege and delight of empowering people to really activate and accept their peculiar genius, that, intersection of all of that stuff that we try to fix, hide, and manage. And they just incorporate it into this beautiful, peculiar genius and help them create the formula to liberate their joy. So I call myself a joyologist.
We love it. And
Yeah.
just that concept of liberating the joy, right? Tell me more about that. I love that phrase.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that we just right, permission to be human, just giving ourselves this unlimited permission to continue to go after what feels good. So I went on this, I call it my decade in life's fun house. And so it was a bunch of life challenges. And I kept coming back to this, after one challenge after another, like divorce and depression. I was like, how can I just feel a little bit better? How can I just feel a little bit better and just keep coming back? And what I didn't realize was that I was coming back to trying to find that joy, and not that happy transient, I got an awesome new wardrobe kind of happiness, but like this kind of baseline feeling of it's gonna be okay, and I'm gonna be okay, and I'm gonna eventually really enjoy a lot of this, and just having these peak moments of oh my god, life is so great, and then I'd go back into something else. But then I got to this place in the pandemic where I just was feeling this really steady, flowy happiness, and I was like, oh, I think I'm living in joy every day. I have no idea how this happened. I was like a mommy doormat situation. And then people would ask me to do stuff and I would say, no, thank you. I don't want to do that. And here's some other help you can have. and, that I would be able to pour into my family, and I still had faith during the pandemic, and so I just kind of have gone on this really organic, windy, fractal, messy journey that has ended up with me being a certified emotional intelligence life coach and a speaker and an author. And I'm finally embracing that I am not a helicopter parent. I am a present parent.
Mm,
Rewriting all of those beliefs, all of those little core beliefs.
yeah. Yeah. I love that. And, it sounds like you've been on quite the journey from, all the challenges that life does throw at us in different times and how we internalize those to starting to shift towards, making this choice for joy, which is a really interesting concept of itself, that it's not so much about what's going around us, but that we can choose where our joy is going to come from and what to say yes and no to, as you say.
Yeah, yeah, and I really that, at first, the first, decade or so, that wasn't really a conscious choice. The choice was just like, I want to feel better, and I don't want to feel like this bad.
Yeah.
And this happened. How can I not fix it? But how can I be okay with it?
Yeah.
And yeah, and so then getting to this point where I can actually work with my energy and like be very conscious of like, oh, my joy helps me align to my internal values and my standards of integrity, and like makes me feel like better as a person. And I remember I made this conscious choice at my last employer that I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start speaking my truth here. And it was not a safe environment. There was nothing like happy, joy about it. But then, like, over these 6 months, I was like brave. I became braver, and I was like being honest and kind, and like I was just like being myself. I, unknowing to me, well, eventually I did notice I lost 25 pounds. Like I physically lost that layer, that buffer to who I was, and I became physically more me. And I knew it would end up in a challenge, so I ended up not staying with that employer, but I knew it was coming, and I was so okay with it. And I was like, "All right, this is just my next lesson, and like,
Mm,
let's figure out how we're gonna love life now."
mm,
Well, yeah. So making it a conscious choice though is something that we can learn to do. It's like a muscle, like the courage
mm.
muscle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
joy's another muscle.
That's such an interesting way to think about joy, right? Because so often we are, as humans and in our culture at least, you know, taught to like seek it, to go find it, and as if it's like a destination point,
Yeah, like it's
as
some kind of a
opposed to like
treasure chest or something.
exactly, like go find the rainbow, slide down, and you might just get on the other
Oh
side,
my
right?
gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been talking with people lately about energetic limits. Have you
Mm.
heard of this concept of
No.
energetic limits?
Tell me more.
So I view like, and it goes back to this concept that we are the energetic sum of our five closest friends, or the five people that we spend the most time with. And
Mm,
so I view us all like we're all at some same rubber band level. And when we get like a peak moment, we realize, and this is true for me, and I have a whole big story around it. Like when we feel really, really good, if it goes way outside those limits, we bounce back. And so it's just like, right. So how we exercise, our muscles to become stronger. It's just like exercising that rubber band to like, have it be more flexible so that we can get to those high points and stay versus snapping
mm,
back. And
mm.
yeah, and then attracting people who have a little stretchier rubber bands, not
Yeah.
holding on as tightly to those that right we might not have a choice to be around. And
Mhm.
so just holding on loosely. And so just kind of just continuing to stretch that rubber band, just like a muscle, the brave muscle, the courage muscle, the joy muscle. So
Yeah.
stretching that energetic limit. Yeah. So yeah. So my story is that it was my second wedding night. This is a peachy story, by the way.
Okay.
Um, just, just gonna caveat that. second wedding night, and it was like we got married on a prairie. It was like the heat of summer, and like all the wildflowers were out, and it's just this beautiful, gorgeous day. And I was married, and I was like marrying the love of my life. And I was like, it couldn't be better. And I remember I just sitting up in bed in the hotel room, and my spouse was asleep next to me. And I just remember I was just full of this like big tension. And it was like, there's something behind it, and you can't go to sleep, and you have this nervous tension. And so finally I had a practice that I did to help me figure out what my emotions. I am on a journey from being a woman from a very like German left brain workaholic family to someone like who started to put words to emotions, but they first came out as metaphors. And so I started writing some really bad poetry, and then some anger came out because my wife had somewhat upstaged me that day, and I can be a limelighty kind of person, and so yeah, so I got some anger out, but I was like, oh, I'm actually really not that angry. I'm really proud of her because she's like an introvert, and she really stuck her neck out, and I was like, oh, I love her even more now. And I was like, and then I started crying. I was just crying and crying and crying. And I just got to this point where I realized it's like the middle of the night. And I was like, I just married someone who loved me for me and not for what I do. And I couldn't like that was really like amazing and hard to take. And then I uncovered this whole other layer that I didn't feel that I was like worthy of joy. I wasn't worthy, right? My rubber band hadn't ever stretched that in that moment. And so it was like this big revelation. And then I was like, finally I can go to sleep. Now I know what's going on. And it was calm. So I don't know if have you ever had experiences where, the stretching of the rubber band experience. So it was like super high, then it went super low. And then
Yeah.
it kind of came back to average.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much in what you just said there, right? Like on what's supposed to be your happiest day of your life. And I can just imagine you sitting there going like, what is this feeling? Like all the supposed to shouting at you here, there, and everywhere. And I love that you had a practice and you gave yourself the space to get to the depth of that, to figure out that it's more than what's on the surface. It's like, actually, it's because this is the happiest day of my life that this is so hard, right? And I think we do have that, like in positive psychology, we talk about foreboding joy. So it's like when you're standing over your baby's bed, whatever it might be, and you're so happy that you think about someone stealing them, or are they breathing, or like that's an actual, like, that's what we all do as humans,
Mhm.
right? And I think what you tapped into there as well is this other depth of like, are we worthy of joy? And actually, that's terrifying. Like, if I think about, like, the purest form of joy, that terrifies me, right? So, like, such an interesting topic there of where we go with that, and I'm really curious if our listeners can identify with that thought. Like, do
Like
you feel that you are worthy?
getting to this point where, and I hear this echoed, at least like in my circles, about like, I was so happy, but I was waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so we have this innate like tension in
Yeah.
ourselves that we can't let go and say like it's okay to feel this good. Of course, we give ourselves permission to feel as low as we can possibly go.
Yeah.
We don't think twice. I say it's
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I screwed up. I did that wrong. Like I deserve this. I'm making everything worse. Like, oh, I'm gonna go hide in this corner right now. And like even when I first when I used to cry before I got okay with emotions, I would like lock myself in a bathroom. Like
Yeah.
I just right? I couldn't handle it, but there was just like one, it was good that I got it out of occasionally, but two, it's just like we give ourselves permission to like go through these deep depths of like all the negative feelings, right? The negativity bias, but like a real like our genius and our joy and our happiness is all on that upside of that emotional scale,
Yeah.
right? And so let's never get up there because we don't believe we're worthy of feeling good. We're just waiting. The foreboding joy. I love
There's the worthiness, and then there's the, like, if it is that elastic band, I think do we believe that we can handle it when it snaps back,
hmm
right? Because the further you go,
the
the
further.
quicker or the farther you can go down, and so, that's terrifying. That's a really
Mhm.
scary feeling, and it it sounds like however we're going to do it, what we can do what we need to do is practice believing that we can handle it. We can handle the joy and all of the, like, emotion that comes with that,
Yeah.
because it's not alone, it's often with sadness, like you experience is often, like, and we
Yes,
can
so they are
handle
like
wherever we go
friends,
back down to. Yeah,
just like the
yeah,
movie. They are a tandem
yeah,
experience, right? That
mhm,
can I have a friend who's a death doula, and so like the joy and grief are very close because they're so powerful. They're on the opposite end of the spectrum. But think about it, if our band can stretch that far down, it can stretch that far up, right? And if we can come up from that grief, we can come down
yeah,
from that joy and it's right. So it's cultivating that belief. And that's where I work with women predominantly. I have like a framework that I work with. It's called a authentic leadership framework to get to that buzzy, liberating joy space. But the
mm,
first two pieces are the pieces that I keep coming back to. And the first is empowerment, which is really worthiness.
yeah,
Right? Worthiness has like as sharing with you before, like worthiness has so many other clothes it wears. Empowerment and like self-esteem and confidence.
yeah,
But it's really like that worthiness piece. And as you were talking, I want to know how you relate to this word or maybe those who are listening, like not wanting to go that high with the joy and just be okay with things being okay. This one word came to mind, like, I don't wanna disappoint myself or others, like
mhm,
that disappointing piece, and,
yeah,
like, I don't wanna get people's hopes up too high, right? Don't wanna disappoint them, and
yeah,
then maybe the same is true for ourselves as humans, right? We don't know if we can handle if it doesn't work out, and we certainly try to make sure it always
yeah,
works out for others, but we're always those we are caretaking for and
yeah,
stewarding and shepherding.
yeah, definitely. So what it makes me think of is, you said you don't know if we could handle whether it doesn't work out, but I think that there's also this, I don't know if I could handle it if it does work out, right? Like,
Yeah.
so a lot of people talk, about if they're gonna go for this big dream or, start this business or whatever it might be, this fear of failure, and I can identify with that and have had it at various times, but the biggest one for me is fear of success.
Mhm.
It's it's not the failure, right? And I think you've tapped on it there. You've touched on, like, what is that about? That's about, well, what if I'm whatever success, quote unquote, means, but what if this all works out and then I can't do it all? What if there's so many things that are going well that I can't hold them any longer? What if it's so big there's no space for it?
Or
And I
I'm
have yet to
different,
get to
right? And
quite
we have this
yeah.
yeah, and we have this fear of like we're gonna be different and we don't
Mhm.
part of us doesn't always resist, right? At at
Yeah.
at our at our core, we're just like conserving energy. right?
Yeah.
We're just built to like want to like conserve energy and all. But like right now where we are as society is like we're trying to push that and expend it and continue to grow and expand and explore like our humanity
Mhm.
and like what is possible for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do think Marianne Williams said it's like it's our light, not our darkness that really scares us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're taught like I would say with guardrails. Don't do this and don't do this and this you're not this is not good for you and don't do that. Right. Rules and rules and rules. And all of those are negative, right? The negativity bias. We're not taught like, oh my God, you are brilliant at doing this. And they're like, oh, we're taught more to like what we need to fix, how we need
Yeah.
to manage ourselves to fit in. And so
Yeah.
we're all given these guardrails, but we're never given this like, what is your dream? Your parents are like, what are you going to do when you grow up as long as it's like safe and secure and brings you stable income and health insurance?
Yeah. Yeah.
Guardrails.
Pretty
Right.
much.
Mhm.
Exactly. Um, yeah. There's something else coming to my mind, but I'm gonna go back to the one that I originally was thinking because a moment ago we were talking about the elastic. I love a metaphor, so I'm gonna continue talking and thinking about elastics now. But I said, well, the further you stretch up, the further you fall. But then, as we kept talking, I was thinking, well, maybe it's actually because if you think of an elastic, if you do keep stretching it really far,
Yeah.
it doesn't bounce back.
It
It
doesn't.
kind of
It gets more
just stays.
relaxed.
Yes, it stays more
Yeah.
relaxed, right?
And we
So
have it
actually,
in
if we're just
great.
stretching little bits at a time, we're not just trying to go so the high is a really big drop, but we're going a little bit to prove to ourselves, just like the courage muscle, right?
Yeah.
To prove to ourselves that we can handle whatever it is that comes. And then we get further. And then, like you say, we get relaxed. We start to, you know, feel into that joy and start to be okay with it and enjoy the joy, right?
Yeah. We can relax up and down, right? And then move that base level.
Yeah.
Like I remember, I should just say, I should say recently, um, like my wife's had a series of like we've had some really really nice weekends, and then like the start of her work week, she's been crashing, right? Because her energetic level is just not used to that, and
Mm,
so then she'll have like some negative health effects starting the week because it's just used to being such a lower level during the week, and
yeah.
then expanding that joy to the top of everything.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
joy
just
does take
learning.
energy, right? It
Yeah,
is
and
an
joy takes
energy.
energy. Yeah,
Yeah.
it takes energy to get there, and then kind of like a commitment. And people say like, "Isn't joy selfish?" Like I get that a lot. Like, why do you focus
Mm,
on joy? Isn't joy selfish? Shouldn't we be focused on productivity or like something something more practical? Maybe a word like I do have a leadership thing, but like leadership or like efficiency or technology
yeah.
and joy, I guess joy is a word that I mean, I never really heard it out of the Christmas context until I started on my little journey in 2020, and it just to me, it's why we are wasting our time spinning on our wheels. It's like I heard there's this analogy of like, well, if we had a puzzle that has 1,000 pieces, but we weren't given the picture of what it looks like how would we do that versus having 1,000-piece puzzle with a picture of what it looks like? Joy
Mm,
is that compass. It's that true north that lets our body, like that evolutionary intelligence in our body, our heart, it lets those talk.
mm,
It lets those speak to us so we can listen and say, this is the way. Like we so much value the mental intelligence, and we've learned to negate the tens of hundreds of thousands of years of body and heart intelligence just baked in. But
yeah.
joy is one of those things that helps us like access that and being able to let it give us direction, and we all have different varying degrees of like heart intelligence and brain intelligence and body intelligence. And, it's just like we're only reading like the first chapter of a book if we're going with the mental intelligence. And then we have to take we have to do a book report on it. That's going to be pretty questionable versus if we had access to the whole book and then we might have more information. And so I think joy is a necessity. I'm going to stake my flag there. It's a right and a
Brilliant.
necessity for us to evolutionarily evolve to go after how we are just weirdly, peculiarly, brilliantly made so that we can each save our own little worlds in our own peculiar way so that collectively we will save the world.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love that. And it really taps into for me the work that I'm doing around like, why do we talk about big audacious dreams? Why do these matter? Isn't that selfish? Right?
Mhm.
All the same kind of conversation that you're talking about there. When actually, in some ways, I think it's the opposite of selfish because it is by doing these dreams that will impact the world in the way that we were always meant to do, right?
Yeah, some
Um,
big universal intelligence gave us these very unique blueprints.
exactly.
So
And I don't think we'll really be able to lean into the joy of things until we start to listen to those whispers that are in there, those little cravings, those like, oh, I really like, well, that was interesting. Like, I wonder what that would be like, or I wonder what it would be like if the world did this instead, or I wonder what it'd be like, just I wonder,
I
right? Our
love that. I love that.
curiosity.
I love that so much. I I use I wonder in context of one of my favorite cartoon characters of all time is Winnie the Pooh,
Yes.
and I base my resiliency framework off of Winnie.
Excellent.
And so, right, having that like patience and compassion, but that curiosity, I feel like that's kind of like the shine on the Winnie right there. And
Yeah.
just being able to stay open to ourselves. We're so good with everybody else. We know exactly what everyone needs and thinks and, like all that stuff, but like, right, staying open for us,
Yeah. Yeah.
for all
I
of
think that's
those.
really beautiful. So if someone's listening and they're like, yeah, that's right. Like, I want to step into my joy. That's terrifying. I agree with all these things you're saying. Like, what would you say? Like, what should they do? Like, what's the step towards that? Right?
Yeah, yeah. So there's some real practical things.
Mm,
So on my website, I have a survey where you can complete, and there's 5 main blocks to joy. And so I will send results for that. But just in a real, like, visceral level, the first step. So always, right? If you can say, like, I am worthy of joy, I am worthy of joy, right? And just notice, practice noticing what comes up for
mhm.
you. And if there's any internal resistance to it, because sometimes it's really hard for us to speak what we don't believe.
Yeah.
And I went through a series of 9 months of core beliefs work. And so so unrooting all of those unhelpful beliefs that
Yeah.
keep us stuck. Mm. But one of the things that I absolutely love sharing with people is this thing called the compassionate co-pilot.
Mm.
And so you're a woman who loves metaphors, so here's another
Yep.
one.
Mhm.
And so when we are like loving and experiencing life and like right eating that chocolate cake and like smelling that lavender and all that good stuff, right? We're kind of like in the driver's seat, right? We're getting all the five senses in and all that stuff and just kind of like really enjoying the scenery and life as the driver. We actually have like a whole carload of people, but the most important person in that car is your co-pilot. And so when we're born, our co-pilots are like our parents, right? They kind of guide us and direct us, right? They give us those guardrails so we don't like eat that one thing or like break our head open on like the, buffet or whatever. And so after a while, our co-pilot becomes an amalgamation of those people in our who were in our inner sphere when were young, and that co-pilot has more likely than not to have like maybe a critical, like they call it the inner committee, some kind of critical bent in the
Yeah.
brain. And so what I when I work with women, busy, generous women, to kind of engage the compassionate co-pilot. So everyone gets a little plastic car that actually works, and they get to just practice being cognizant of like who is driving your car?
Mm.
Who's driving your car? And we do this exercise of like who is, what are the best qualities of your best friends that you just absolutely love? And we list like all these qualities like trustworthiness and openness and non-judgmental and right compassionate and encouraging and supportive. And so I like that is that's that's the person who needs to be your co-pilot. That's your that's your person who's going to say, "All right, we made a wrong turn and it's okay. And we're gonna just gonna go to the rest stop. We're gonna get your favorite like, fast food, and we're just gonna cry a little bit and then we're gonna get back on okay. We can do this."
Oh, I
And
love
so
that. As you can
so
imagine, metaphor wise, but also, it really taps into that, that co-pilot is the beliefs that we've been given by all these people that surrounded us when we were really young. And then also now it's our choice, right? It's our choice to shift a little bit with really hard work where
you
those
gotta be
values
conscious.
are going to lie and what our beliefs are going to be about ourselves and the world and
Mhm.
the people around us. And yeah, I love that concept. It's really beautiful. So I'm curious what like other people's like what's yeah, so listeners, like who is your co-pilot? Who is it now? Like
Like create your like who is in that seat right now? Who do you give
mhm,
the power to, right? Because
yeah,
that seat has the power, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
All that we listen to that
Mhm,
direction so intimately.
yeah.
And I know that when my kids were little, I so too funny. When my kids were little, I call my mom every day. I had no idea what I was doing. And I figured if I just did what my mom did, I would be a good
Mm,
right. And so like that was like how I lived for years, was
yeah.
just calling my mom. But in other random notes, when I was a teenager, I had the hardest time picking out clothes for myself. So I'm a recovering codependent. And so like I would just like inquire for my like older brothers because they were cool and like my parents. And I'm like, you guys need to, whenever it was like a big family function or some kind of big school event, I would just have a crazy meltdown. Right? Because they were
Yeah,
all in like I wasn't my there was no compassionate co-pilot. My co-pilot was just a right. So these are
yeah,
the people that framed it. But yeah, so
yeah.
just being really cognizant of like you can put in whoever you want. If you want to put in like Winnie the Pooh, put in Winnie the Pooh there, man. Like he's great. He's gonna have honey and he's gonna be patient, right? He's
Yeah.
gonna drive you to the woods. And those are all great things. But yeah, so just put someone in there, you know.
I think it would have to be Piglet. I think I'd have to pick Piglet. Piglet is glorious and
Oh.
just sweet and innocent and compassionate and doesn't overthink things, just simple.
Yeah, he's like the
Good
little
old Piglet.
Cooper. He's a little
Yeah.
Cooper. Yeah, that's so fun. That's so fun.
Amazing.
So good.
Okay, I could talk for another hour about this topic for sure, and perhaps we will check in at another time with it. But for now, let us know. So if listeners are really intrigued by, actually, I'm not going to go down that path yet because first I want a tip. So a top tip, these are moms or people who are mothering who maybe are like, in the context of our conversation, just like, oh gosh, joy. Like, I wish I want to have that
Totally
dream.
same.
I want to have that joy. And I just don't know how to get there. What's your top tip for the people listening?
Hey, my top tip would be to practice saying, and just like even with like really, really little things, and practice believing like my happiness comes first.
Mm. Yeah.
So just taking those little steps, saying like, you know what? I am going to eat breakfast before I do my 2 hours of mom chores,
Yeah.
right? Give yourself permission to put your happiness first in very little ways, but that means something to you.
Mhm. Yeah.
And one sip of coffee at a time, right? One bite of breakfast at a time.
Yeah. Totally. It makes me think of, I've done the opposite in order to get that result, which is I used to like shove food in my mouth while I ran out the door trying to get my kids to school. And for the last few months of school, when it was on, I was like, no, I like, when I'm not hungry at that time, that's not the way my body really sits. And I want to eat something that I really want to eat, which isn't something I can shove in my face on the way out. So I started having breakfast when I got back, and I gave myself like a half an hour to like make a cooked breakfast and really enjoy that process, and maybe stick a podcast on and, just like have that moment for myself before I would start work. And it made all the difference. That's when I usually want to eat anyways. It's about that time. I've been up for at least an hour and a half. So yeah, that's that example. And there's something else that was coming to my mind. What was it? Oh, around you were suggesting this concept of saying to yourself, like, I am worthy. And I have kind of something to add to that, which is, what if you had a question around it? If you really like, as soon as you say that, if in your head is like, no, I'm not, like, then it's not really doing its job, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But a really amazing woman, Carol, said to me once, well, we can trick our brains because we're curious people. So we say, well, what if I was worthy? And all of a sudden we're imagining ourselves worthy, right? And we're imagining what that would look like. And that whole I wonder part that we were discussing before, right? I
Oh, that's
wonder what it would
beautiful.
be like if I was worthy. And like our brains go in this beautiful direction.
Yeah. 'Cause then you
Yeah.
can break out the watercolors, right?
Exactly. Because it's just imaginary. So we're
Right.
allowed to do it, right?
Yeah.
But our brain doesn't understand the difference between imaginary and reality. So actually it's happening, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that's
Um,
beautiful. That's
yeah.
beautiful.
Amazing. Okay. So if people are like, oh, I really like the sound of Heidi and what she's up to, and I want to find out more about all of these things. I want to figure out who my co-pilot is. I want her to send me a car, like all these things. Where would they find you?
They can find me at HeidiEsther.com, and you can always just email me. I'm an email kind of lady at howdy@HeidiEsther.com.
Amazing. I love that email address, by the way. I looked at it right before we started. I was like, I want to start my email with howdy.
Howdy.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us, Heidi.
Oh, it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Mel.
You know when you have that dream or that idea and you hold it really tight and you don't really want to share it with anyone until you have it just right, until you are absolutely assured that it is exactly what you want it to be. But you also know deep down inside that it is unlikely to get perfect. It is unlikely to get to exactly where you want it to be unless you share it with others. It's when we share it with other people that we get the energy and the momentum. It is when we get feedback. It is when we start to iterate inside of our own minds. We need to get it out of our bodies and into the world in some sort of way. And talking to someone who will cheer you on is exactly the first step. Now, if you can't think of anybody in your life that you would love to share your dream with in this raw stage where you're not going to get the words right and you're worried that they're going to come back to you and be, yeah, but, or ooh, what if? Don't share it with those people. If you can't think of who to share it with, then I want to be that person for you. Totally complimentary. I am launching the Dream Haven, and it is a simple message back and forth concept where you tell me your dream and I cheer you on and tell you exactly how amazing I think it is. I can be that safe space for you and your dreams to grow into whatever they're going to grow. It's totally complimentary. It remains your dream, not mine. And I would absolutely love and be honored by being that person who gets to hear it first. So head on over to permissiontobehuman.ca/the-dream-haven and let's get this going, because your dream deserves to be out there in the world. It could be a project, it could be a business, it could be the change that you really want to see in the world, it could be an adventure that you really want to go on. You got this. Let's hear about it. Again, all you have to do is head on over to permissiontobehuman.ca/the-dream-haven and put your details in, and you'll get a video personalized back from me inviting you to take our next step. That is it, folks. This has been Mel Finlater on Permission to Be Human, the podcast, and I am so glad that you have joined us here today and hope that you have taken away some tidbits that will help you go away, connect with your big audacious dream, and make that massive impact in the world that you are dying to make. If you liked today's episode, please, please, please like it, share it. Think of one person that you think would also like it and send it on over to them. Let's get this out there and more moms feeling like themselves, inspired, dreaming big, and out there being them. Please do head on over to find me on Facebook with Permission to Be Human or Instagram, or you can even pop me an email and say hello at permissiontobehumanalways@gmail.com. Say hello and let me know that you listened. What did you like about it? I would love to hear. If you didn't like it, I don't really want to know. Just kidding. You can share that if you want. I would love to know, however, who you are. Let's connect. Let's find out what you want more of. I want to hear from you, and I want to make it what would be useful to you. As always, remember that you have permission to dream big, permission to feel big, and permission to be you. You have complete and full permission to be human. For real, you do.